Europe. The Czech government says Europe has never seen anything like it. China's massive military buildup worries the West. How likely is it that China and Russia will work together, and what's at stake?
If China pressures Russia into making a move in Eastern Europe that they're not actually prepared for, or they miscalculate, that could lead to a huge conflagration, and perhaps that's the biggest danger.
Details on that and more after the break here on China in Focus. Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Taiwan's vice president has responded to Beijing's plan to physically intimidate her during her visit to Czech last March. Czech military intelligence said on Friday that Chinese secret agents plotted a staged car crash involving Xiaobi Kim. The crash never happened, but Czech intelligence called Beijing's plot unprecedented. It said there's never been anything like it on European soil. On Saturday, Xiaobi Kim responded, saying, "I had a great visit to Prague and thanked the Czech authorities for their hospitality and ensuring my safety. The CCP's unlawful activities will not intimidate me from voicing Taiwan's interests in the international community." Taiwan's democratically elected government is facing growing military, diplomatic, and economic threats from Beijing. China's top diplomat, Wang Yi, recently said Beijing must bring Taiwan under the regime's rule. A Taiwanese presidential spokesperson has demanded an apology from Beijing for targeting its vice president. The NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, commenting on the potential for a Chinese attack on Taiwan, he expressed concern about China's massive military buildup and noted that 3 to 5 of the world's top 10 defense companies are now from China. Compare that to just a few years ago when none of the top 10 were China-based. To discuss entities, Don Ma was joined by Adam Sabat, director of the China Policy Initiative at America First Policy Institute. Take a look.
Mark Rutte says that if China attacks Taiwan, Russia could create a military distraction in Europe to support Beijing. What's the likelihood of this in your mind?
Well, I'll put it this way. The likelihood that they would want to help Beijing distract is definitely there. Whether they can, they're going to have to be creative, because here's the thing. There's some disagreement on how distracted they are in Ukraine or how overextended they are in Ukraine as far as their weapon systems, as far as their personnel, as far as their economy and energy. But everyone agrees that they are definitely diverted to some degree. And so therefore mounting a real attack on NATO's eastern flank, those Eastern European countries, as well as Finland and the Baltic states, that would be very difficult and probably unwise because although, sometimes we criticize Europe for being underprepared, that would still be a huge mountain for Russia to climb. They do not want to instigate that sort of reprisal. So I'm thinking they might actually do something indirect, something like perhaps activate their North Korean ally. Now, the North Koreans have helped Russia in Ukraine, providing thousands of troops, and Russia has provided technology and shipbuilding expertise to North Korea. So I would think of a more creative angle like that.
Okay, but hypothetically speaking, in Rutte's scenario, how dangerous would a coordinated move between China and Russia simultaneously be?
If they did do that, and if they were able to pull it off, it would be incredibly dangerous. We're talking about 2 nuclear powers, huge continental land masses. Of course, Russia being the top nuclear power, the most warheads in the entire world. And yes, they can cause a lot of problems. And I'd say actually a big risk there is miscalculation. If China pressures Russia into making a move in Eastern Europe that they're not actually prepared for, or they miscalculate, that could lead to a huge conflagration, and perhaps that's the biggest danger.
Okay, so how solid is the no limits partnership? You heard of that phrase between Xi and Putin. Is it really no limit?
It is not no limits. It is absolutely a marriage of convenience. Now, both of them are against American and Western hegemony. That's the main glue that's holding them together. But let's look at, the no limits partnership, but of course the 2 other junior partners or informal axis are Iran and North Korea. This week, we had some important activities in Iran, and Iran is greatly degraded in their nuclear program as well as their general ability to deter in the Middle East. And did Russia and China come to their aid? They did not. So, there's real strictures here when the rubber hits the road and when the U.S. applies its power. There's limits there's limits. It's not no limits. There's limits to what these countries can do for each other. And ultimately, China and Russia's interests do not align on some very important things. They have underlying border disputes in the east of Russia. They have conflicts over resources in eastern Russia and those sorts of tensions. They actually have tensions over North Korea because now Russia's become a closer ally to North Korea than China is. There's all sorts of layers here, all sorts of ways to pry them apart from each other. It is not no limits.
Okay, so Mark Rutte also said today, that NATO would not opt out of a conflict involving Taiwan. Can you paint us a picture here of what role would NATO practically play in an Indo-Pacific crisis?
Yeah, well, practically they would not play a kinetic role, as we say. They would not have a meaningful naval or air component that they could commit to a Taiwan contingency. For that, we would have to rely on our regional partners, our treaty allies such as Japan and the Philippines, and these mini-lateral arrangements like the Quad, which includes also India and Australia. We need those allies to be in concert with us and applying their forces and being diplomatically aligned with us. That's the key in the Indo-Pacific. It's more what Rutte is pointing to, that NATO's role would be more backfilling us over in Europe, making sure nothing goes wrong there. As far as NATO's role in the East, it would be a pre-war diplomatic and otherwise deterrent signaling. For example, freedom of movement or freedom of navigation movements through the Taiwan Strait, as well as the South China Sea. We've seen the UK and Germany pass their ships through those passages. As far as an actual hot war, practically there's not very much they can do.
That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Judy Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For On the Clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.
川普的关税到了收尾的时候了，在这个时候呢，大家会看出来，如果没有跟美国谈好交换条件，关税就不会降下来，而是会照原来的对等关税或者更高来实行。那对川普来讲的话，对谈判对手加压力完全不是问题，他完全敢加压力，完全敢给你好看。那如果你好好跟他谈，做出对美国来讲是算是一个有利的交换条件那他关税完全可以降下来。那你不能说因为他关税降下来，你就说他这个川普总是退缩叫做他口，这个讲法不对因为川普是开条件加压力之后来跟你谈如果谈得好的话，他完全可以把压力取消他是一个讲道理的人。然后呢，很多人不愿意去了解他的道理，就对川普这个批评，然后呢误判那估计呢这样的情况可能还会持续。那川普会一一拿出具体的对策，如果有问题，他也会修改，他也会纠错。所以到目前为止看起来，川普的关税以及他上任将近半年快要半年他的那个很多做法已经呈现出来对美国的经济来讲有几个重点，第一个就是那个债务的危机的处理第二个呢，贸易那个市场开放的问题这些都很重要。再来应对中国的挑战，在地缘政治上的话，川普也是那个下重手下硬手。所以综合来看的话，川普可能在领导美国走出过去的困境，全球化之下的困境，走向一个新的未来。那表面上有不确定性，其实很确定的就是川普要让美国再次伟大。
想看更完整的分析，请点击以下说明栏的连结。